Hi,
Hi. Good evening.
Hi, Kristen.
Hello. How are you?
I'm good. I'm good. Been a long day, but sitting, still functioning. How
Okay.
about you?
Good, good. Yeah, it's been a long day too.
hmm
Are you working from home?
Pretty much, yes. Have been working from home since the beginning, really, of this
Mm-hmm.
pandemic and all the, various lockdowns and heightened alerts and so on. Um, which is always a little bit odd for me because, this career is so people oriented and
Yeah.
functions so much on, sort of meeting people face to face, talking to people face to face, that it's
Yeah.
been an adjustment.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
Okay. Yeah, so it's 7. I'm gonna welcome everyone. Thank you for joining our live tonight. So tonight, our live IG live is in collaboration with Safe Space, and today we have Cordelia Fernandez, from counselor from Safe Space. So welcome to our IG live,
Thank
and
you.
yeah, would you like to introduce yourself?
Okay, well, I'm Cordelia. I've been a safe space counselor since around the beginning of this year, the first quarter of this year. The months all blend into one. I'm sorry. So yeah, since the quarter of this year and first quarter of this year, and I found it really quite eye-opening. I think sort of just dealing with clients and really sort of putting into practice all the listening skills and all the, sort of the skills that a counselor should have. Let me tell you my background a little bit. I have been a lecturer for the longest time. So I've been in education for most of my life. This is a mid-career switch for me. And I was really inspired, I guess, to sort of make that switch because I like people and I like helping people. And to me, it's just the transfer of skills from a bunch of students to maybe an individual or a couple or a small group. So I was inspired to go and get my master's. Although I sort of feel I have been sort of counseling most of my life, students, parents, recalcitrant students,
Mm-hmm.
those who, would rather play, or those who have genuine issues, problems, whether they're financial or not. So I find that really, really rewarding. And I love working with Safe Space. I think it's such an intuitive platform. Um, and from the client's point of view, I think it really makes a lot of sense that they are able to find counselors and be able to see what they charge. They're able to see
Mm-hmm.
what their specialities are. Whereas I assume, if there weren't such a platform or similar platforms, that it would be quite overwhelming for somebody to
Yeah.
try and find help. So I
Yeah.
think it's a great service and I'm really enjoying being part of it.
That's great. Yeah. So today's topic, actually, we are talking about mental health and
Mm-hmm.
also about how to prevent burnout, which is something that a lot of us may face, but we may not know about it as well. So, how everyone has been working from home for quite some time now. And
Yeah.
yeah, it's been such a change from going to the office during the
Mm-hmm.
weekdays to now just rolling out of bed and going to our Zoom meetings and entering
Yes.
our work day. So,
Yes.
I mean, it's been more than a year now, like about a year and a half. And
Mm-hmm.
as much as everyone is enjoying the advantages of working from home, not having to
Mm.
travel, being able to have the flexibility, of doing things from home. But at the
Yes.
same time, there are some challenges that they face. So, in speaking to the clients that you spoke to, what are some of the challenges that they have faced?
Um, well, as you mentioned, it's actually in the beginning seemed like such a great idea, as opposed to having to get ready, get dressed, um, get on some public transport. And a lot of your time you realize is taken up in transport. And some people are still enjoying the benefits of this. I think there are some personality types who find this, a situation or this kind of work arrangement not too bad and they don't suffer too much. But there are people And I think the longer we get into this sort of COVID situation where everyone's trying to stay away and stay safe and so on, I think the longer we get into it, the more and more you see the challenges that come up for individuals. So, I mean, when I do speak to clients, most of them talk about things like the workload actually feeling heavier than it is and much more overwhelming. I suppose, you know, when we go into an office, there are certain ways that we structure our day. You know, we go and we answer some emails, and then, you know, maybe there's a bit of a meeting, and then there's a fresh direction. Whereas now you're pretty much on your own. And another feeling that they report is feeling really quite isolated. So isolated from their team, which means isolated from not only sort of, you know, friendly people around, but isolated from that synergy that a team has. That, you know, one person says, hey, I can't do this, and then suddenly within seconds or minutes there's a solution and somebody knows how to do it. So it's a lot more difficult to sort of figure things out on your own. Other clients have reported things like just finding it hard to get help and supervision, because you have to, it's two extra steps. You have to call someone, you have to text someone, as opposed to, you know, passing them in the corridor and saying, hey, you know, I kind of need help with this. Yeah. And also, I think, you know, for me as well, that was the biggest thing. Just being sort of cut off and sort of remote. And then, of course, now that you're working from home, there's such a unclear division between work life and home life. So these were the main sort of challenges that they reported.
Okay. Yeah, so I mean, I've been speaking to some friends as well. Some people enjoy, apart from not having to dress up to travel, also because I guess it also depends on personalities, where some people prefer to operate on their own, as much as, you know, they need the support of their team, but it's not that vital to be face to face. Whereas there are people that, like you mentioned, the lines are blurred, you know, from your actual life and your work life, and then there is some sort of imbalance because more is expected from you because you're working from home, and then you don't know, you know, when you really clock off, or people start crossing boundaries.
Exactly.
Yeah.
Yes. I mean, boundaries are a big thing as well. Funnily enough, nobody actually talked about that, which leads me to believe that boundaries are frequently crossed anyway, in terms of getting, you know, in terms of getting like that 2 a.m. email, or, you know, the 5:30 a.m. text. So yeah, it's quite funny that no one sort of reported that. But, you know, some of the things that I think are important for a person to realize, because we are a relatively stressed nation of workers anyway. You know, we work long hours, hard hours. The work can be quite challenging. So I think sometimes a lot of people don't even recognize that they are approaching maybe burnout, or they are approaching a point where it's just not sustainable anymore. So like some of the symptoms that you would get, you know, if you think about the physical symptoms, I think the first thing that you would notice is the trouble sleeping. I mean, from time to time, we all have trouble sleeping, you know, if we've got something on our mind or something. But if regularly you find that you're either finding it really hard to fall asleep, or you're falling asleep, but you're not getting quality sleep, or you're waking up many, many times during the night, this is, you know, one of the signs that you could be approaching burnout. Because again, your brain is just constantly ticking over. And, you know, another thing could be the fact that you're not eating, or you're eating too much. There's no impulse control there. And things like reduced immunity, even increased aches and pains, you know, just from your body kind of functioning on that high alert sort of all the time. which goes back to boundaries again, which are so hard to delineate.
Yeah,
Yeah,
yeah.
yeah, during this time.
So,
Um,
in these circumstances, there are challenges that people working from home face. So, what are
yeah.
some of these challenges? Yeah.
Um, well, okay. So I talked about some of the physical,
Yeah.
challenges that they might encounter, and that is, I mean, that should be a first indication,
Mm.
and that you should not kind of ignore it and just pass it off as, oh, it's the normal stress. It could be the normal stress, but if you're
Mm-hmm.
not keeping an eye on it, then it could
Mm.
spiral into something else. The other kinds of challenges are like the environmental ones, like the boundaries between, sort of workspace homes. And the thing is, you're not working from home alone. You are working from home with possibly a partner, possibly a horde of children, all of whom need resources like
Mm.
computers, they need space. And so right this minute, this is my bedroom, okay? Because my daughter has her space over there.
Mm-hmm.
Her father works in another sort of office space. So I'm left with the bedroom. So yeah, sometimes it's sort of fighting for resources can be a bit chaotic. And
Yeah.
also, um, and then it takes away the sort of buffer that you normally have at home when you
Mm.
come home and everyone's happy to see you and you can sit and have dinner and relax and spend time with people that you love, somehow that gets taken away from you and
Mm.
you feel like, oh my God, there's more people to compete with now, or I'm sick of seeing these people all day long. They no longer feel like somewhere safe and nice and fun that you can return to. So I think that's a huge challenge as well. Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
Um, okay, this next one that I'm thinking of, again, clients don't directly report this to me, but from what I can see, there's a kind of feeling of like a lack of accomplishment.
Mm-hmm.
Like they're not completing the things that they think they should. Whereas normally when you leave the office, you've either completed your tasks and you're leaving, or you've completed some tasks and you've, made a note of where to pick up the next day.
Mm-hmm.
Whereas here, because of the blurring of boundaries and people thinking, well, you're at home, you're at work, you're available, I'll just contact you and ask.
Yeah.
There's that feeling that everything just keeps piling on and I am accomplishing nothing. Um,
Mm.
and I think of all the things, that is probably the most damaging because that is the closest thing that differentiates stress, just ordinary stress, from burnout. Is that feeling lack of accomplishment? I'm not competent. I'm not finishing what I need to finish. What's the point of trying to do anything because I'm not finishing what I need to finish? And then it leads to that attitude of defeat, I guess, and
Mm-hmm.
hopelessness. And that's the thing that, you know, that makes you think, oh my gosh, this is burnout. This isn't just a bad day at the office. Yeah.
Yeah. I
Yeah.
think being able to differentiate stress from burnout is a bit difficult in the sense that
Mm,
most people will write it off as just stress and
mm,
then go and try doing something that would help free their minds or get their minds off work. Yeah, but
mm.
what is it about burnout that is damaging to the ones that are experiencing it?
Okay. So okay, I'm going to try and explain this like as simplistically as possible, not for anybody, but for me, because I'm not a medical person, right?
Yes.
but, but basically what it is that over over the course of the day, you experience mild, acute, uncontrollable stresses. So, for
Mm.
example, you come into the office and the boss says, "Come and see me now." That's already like a little jolt. Or maybe you receive like something from a client that is, a little bit difficult or challenging to deal with. Any of the small stresses that we normally have at work, Even things like the transport being late or you being late or things like that. So we experience these a little bit, but when it doesn't, the thing is, it doesn't matter even if it's small stress, it still can cause a loss of like prefrontal cognitive function and cognitive activity. So for example, if you were to, let's say, you open your computer first thing in the morning and there's like a horrible email saying you've done blah, 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 and blah, and you are blah, 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 and blah. What happens to you? What happens to your body? For a while, you can't function, right? You lose the ability to sort of respond reasonably, and everything just kind of goes into fight or flight. So, if you experience these for a prolonged period of time, as I think many, many people have been doing, what happens is that, the prefrontal nerve centers, or sensors rather, they are changed, and the amygdala, which is like the fear center, is enlarged. So you are constantly in a state of, I'm being attacked, there is a threat. This is what the body does. So that's the difference between normal stress, which the thing is, okay, we experience the stress and then we step away, and usually at the end of the day we can decompress. Here, because the boundaries are blurred, there is no sense of decompression. Yeah. And because everything takes so much longer to do. If I want to do something and then I hand it off to somebody and then it has to get approved and come back, I could walk to their office and say, hey, look at this. Can you approve this now, please? And then they do it and it's done. Here, you've got to wait. Oh my God, I've got to wait. So constant state of stress. And that, I think, is really what leads to the kind of burnout that we're looking at. So, I mean, if you're in this state, what happens to you? And these are, again, sort of signs that people can look out for. It affects your focus. It affects your attention. It affects your ability to take perspective. Any kind of cognitive flexibility. The ability to sort of see things from other points of view and be adaptable. All that is impaired. It just drops immediately because, again, fight or flight has taken over. Other things, you lose the ability to, let's say, defer gratification. So, for example, I'm in a constant state of stress. It's just been piling up all day. I'm still at work. My daughter needs this. So and so, needs help with their HBL, and that kind of thing. And then you think, right, you know what? I'm just going to eat a pile of donuts or something, even though on a normal day, you'd be able to think, yeah, I'm just going to have one donut. Do you know what I mean? And then when everyone complains about the lockdown sort of pounds coming on or kilograms piling on, you think it's just physical, but it's all linked, isn't it? Yeah. So yeah, all these things kind of happen, and those are the signs that you need to look out for. I think. Yeah.
Okay, I think like you mentioned, stress eating is a big thing that a lot of people have faced.
I know.
Yeah, but also working from home, it also gives people the chance to start working on themselves.
Yes.
Having the added time of not having to travel, you can transit from just work to going for a workout. And I think it also comes down to time management and
so much.
What people are looking to do. So I mean, in coping with stress and coping with burnout, what are some tips that you have for people who are going through how can they go about coping with it?
Okay. Well, I mean, I have read and I've heard, and I'm sure you have too, like people have these tips and they say we have 10 ways to cope with burnout and strategies and that kind of thing. And they are all valid, and I think they're all excellent. I think the trouble comes when people are so tired and stressed and defeated that they can't even bring themselves to look at those things and believe that any of those tips is going to help them. You know, because I mean, I'm looking at the list of things here that I've suggested to my clients before, and they've taken them on with varying degrees of enthusiasm. Some are like, yeah, I can try this, and others are like, oh my God, what's the point? So I'm going to go through some of the things that you can do first of all, and then I'd really like to talk mostly about the cognitive or the mental aspect of it. Because if you're not buying into it, you know, I could give you 527 tips on how to lead a better work from home life, and you won't buy into it. But okay, so just common sense wise, your body and your health have to be okay. So I think the first thing that you need to do is you really do need to sort of look after your health. If you're not healthy, if you're worn down, you're going to find it really, really hard to feel good about anything, right? So that needs to be, take care of your nutrition. I mean, we all know what to do. And it's not that we can't do the unhealthy thing. Of course, pizza, you know, sort of, and the donuts and the cakes and all the yummy sort of carbs and fat and salt and that kind of thing. All of that keeps us happy in moderation. But if that's your default because you've lost the ability to control, or you've lost, you know, that sense that tells you, I should not be doing this, then your system is clogged with it. And you start to feel sluggish. So physically, it affects you as well. Right? And then you kind of look in the mirror and you think it's starting to get very lumpy or anything like that. And then what does that do for your self-esteem? So I think health is the first thing that you really do need to take care of. Take care of your sleep patterns. Must get enough sleep. And now it's harder because, again, you don't have to be up at, let's say, 7 to get on a bus at 7:30 to get on, you know, to get to work at 8:30 or something like that. So we sleep in. And then the pattern is all over the place. So what you said about time management is absolutely spot on. I think you need to try and function as though you were still going to work. Getting up, have a shower, put on a little bit of makeup. You don't have to do a whole lot. You know, don't have to look as glamorous as anything, but just a little bit. So it tells your brain and it tells your body, I'm getting ready, you know, for the work day. Try and keep regular sleeping hours. Sleep at the same time as you normally would. You know, set your alarm for the same time that you normally would, and that kind of thing. And then, of course, the working out. I mean, it's so funny that you mentioned now we have more time to work out, because no one takes that time to work out. They just take time to scroll on Instagram or, you know, watch another YouTube video on like people eating cinnamon by the spoonful, you know, or let's just make another TikTok or things like that. We don't. So I don't know. I guess the same thing I would say to somebody who wanted to have more exercise in their life: find a buddy, because trying to do things by yourself, you will let yourself off the hook, right? So make yourself accountable. Find a girlfriend or a guy friend, you know, and say, right, okay, at this time we're going to go work out. Find a video on YouTube, and we're just going to do like a 20-minute HIIT workout or something. Or even better still, go outside, get out of the place, go out. I'm sure there's a whole scientific thing between greenery, being outdoors, and how that affects your whole being. Again, not medical person, so, but yes, get outside, find a change of scenery, look at some trees, you know, and I think that would really help a lot. Okay, so that's kind of the physical needs. Environmental changes. I know it seems a little privileged when you say, oh, well, make your workspace different from your home space. Not everyone has the luxury of
Yeah.
that, right? So the thing is, it's just symbolic differences. I think that your brain sort of thinks, right, now I am here and now I am there. So even if it's just, finding a space somewhere and just putting a table down or moving a table from somewhere, getting a chair that's really comfortable for you, get yourself a new coffee mug. You don't have to go and buy like some expensive standing desk or something like that. Go get a new coffee mug. This is my, work mug. Things like that that kind of delineate the space. And then maybe treat it a little bit like your office. So if in your office you have, let's say, your qualifications hung up, go put them there. This is my workspace. This is what I'm doing. If you've got a logo, if you're an entrepreneur, you've got a logo and whatnot, put things up that remind you of why you are there. What is it that made you want to take this job in the first place? Just all those reminders, even reminders of milestones that you've achieved and that you've received over the years. Do you want to put a photo of your kids? Put a photo of your kids. This is what I'm doing all of this for. If you're motivated by future rewards or holidays, go get a physical brochure of the holiday that you can take when we can finally take holidays. Go put it there as a sense of motivation, so you can make kind of all these environmental changes if you can. Yeah.
I think, like you mentioned, it's kind of in a way tricking your brain. And I mean, personally, myself, I had a meeting earlier today,
Oh
and
yeah.
my neighbor above me has been doing renovations for the longest time. Yeah, it's supposed to end in September,
No.
and it's still going on.
We're
Yeah,
we're not far from November now. Yeah.
yeah. So,
Oh yeah, that must drive you nuts. What
it
do you
does,
do?
but certain times when it gets too much, when I have a lot of meetings, then I will step out and go somewhere else to conduct my meetings, a change of environment. And I find that
Yes.
really helps, yeah, apart
I
from
think
just being at home.
such a great
Yeah.
idea. Do you go to like a coffee shop or something? You treat yourself to a coffee?
Yeah, I have this space below where where it's
Ah,
for public use, so I just go down there, find a good spot with
nice.
Wi-Fi, and get
Yeah,
work
yeah,
done.
yeah. Ah,
Yeah,
yeah.
so just a change in environment sometimes really helps, and also the whole tricking your mind into thinking it's still a work day, or at least respecting that work day instead of just really, like I said earlier, rolling out of bed
Mm-hmm.
and attending meetings. Brush your teeth, shower, change up,
Yeah,
put
yeah.
on some sunblock. I mean, if you're sitting near a window, it's always still advisable to put sunblock because the UV rays can still get to your skin.
Yeah,
And
yeah.
another thing also that when you are stressed, your cortisol level rises, so it affects your body functions, especially for females. They start
Yes,
feeling hormonal or delay in
yes,
periods and things like that. Yeah,
yes.
so for a lot of our fellow followers here, I believe they follow us for the content of how to care for your sexual health, your wellness, and a big thing
Mm-mm.
that
Yes, I
we have
hear
been
it.
talking about is about hormones as well. So, through our research and through understanding our bodies better, stress has a very big effect on that. Yeah.
Yeah. No, absolutely. And again, talking about women and their kind of health, women of a certain age, um, cortisol is like our number one enemy
Mm.
because cortisol is the thing that basically makes you put on weight after a certain age.
Mm.
But yeah, it makes you put on weight as well. So yeah, it's the stress hormone, right? That's the
Yeah.
stress hormone.
Yes.
Yeah. So yes, absolutely, enemy number one. So anything you can do, and the thing is, I think we kind of live in a society where people want things quickly,
Mm.
immediately. I am either useless or I'm a superhero, and there seems to be very little tolerance or very little acknowledgement of the steps in between, you know? So I do think that we tend to get a little bit more stressed if we're not superheroes every day. And every day, as you find yourself kind of slipping into, I'm not working as fast, I'm not doing as much work as I used to be able to, I'm not being able to concentrate as much as I'm able to. All these things really affect. They really affect you quite badly. And then all of a sudden, you've gone from superhero to complete loser in your own mind. And of course, what that does to you as well, it's just not at all helpful. Yeah. I was thinking, in terms of sort of environmentally as well, I think another thing that you can do, which is not necessarily physical environment, is, and we've talked about this a little bit before, is set those boundaries. Set the boundaries of, for example, some days I do have to work in what's actually my bed, which is no fun. But instead of like just pulling the computer there, I get a little computer table, right? So when the computer table is there, and I mean the bed's quite comfortable, so it's not a big deal. So I can get a lot of work done. But at the end of the day, that computer table with the computer on it disappears under the bench, and you pull a curtain over it, and that's kind of right out of the way. So that to me makes a big difference. If I have to spend the evening looking at my computer over there and then thinking, I'll just answer that. That's how it happens. So making those boundaries as well. And as much as possible, I think those 5 a.m. texts or the 2 a.m. emails, do you have to be answering them? Do you have to be? Sometimes, of course, there is an emergency, I suppose, but really a work emergency, depending on what your work is. If you were a surgeon, that's a different thing. But otherwise, I think the ordinary person can probably go into the next day and deal with something at 9 and not have a whole lot of bad consequences happen because of that delay. Right. So I do think that's really quite important. To make that kind of cognitive. That's a cognitive and emotional boundary. Which you have to make. I'm just looking at some of the things that I've said. Okay. So in terms of environmentally as well, actually it's kind of going on from there. I think we've spent a lot of time looking at how bad we are at things. Like, I'm so bad at this, I'm not doing this well, I'm failing here, and so on and so forth. Whereas I think, you just need a little bit of cognitive flexibility to sort of think, well, what am I doing well? What can I do well? And if you're finding that work at the moment isn't one of those places, then find something else that you can do. And make up a list of things that kind of nourish you mentally, physically, emotionally, spiritually. I bet you, if I asked you to make a list of those things, like a few things that nourish you physically, emotionally, etc., etc. So things like, I don't know, family, or all the things that you love to do or that you're good at. And if I asked you to rate them out of 10 in terms of the importance to you, they'd probably get like 7, 8, 9, 10, around there. And then if I asked you to write another number next to them, if you say, let's say, health is a 10, or, being fit is a 10, and I asked you, okay, so how much time do you spend on it? On a scale of 1 to 10, what would that number be? So many times I find that the discrepancy is huge. They tell me reading is important, knowledge is important. How much do you read? 2, 3.
I think it's the disparity between the ideal thought that they have, what they want to be, versus actually getting down to doing it. And that is the difficulty in it, I've seen
Yeah.
like people talk about how they bought stacks of books wanting to read and then only to power it up and say
Right.
that they'll get to it but not get to it. Or, like you mentioned, prioritizing your health and fitness. But when
Yeah.
it comes down to actually doing it, how many people are doing it or taking the time to do it? Yeah. So,
And the thing is, yeah. I mean, it's a shame, first of all. But the thing is, when you ask them, it's not so much that I must be a reader, but
mm,
it's I love reading. Reading makes me happy. So you've identified an area that makes you really happy, and yet you're paying so little attention to it. Finishing a book makes you feel accomplished, or finishing a task, or climbing a rock wall, it makes you feel a sense of accomplishment that may be lacking
mm,
for the moment in the workplace, you
yeah.
know? And rather than feel like a loser in all areas of your life, go seek out the things that you love and go and pay some attention to them and get good at them and,
Mm,
feel like you're competent. Remember that you're accomplished. Remember all the things that you can do well. And
mm.
this helps to offset a little bit that, that kind of nagging voice in your head. Yeah.
Yeah.
Mm.
I I think people tend to neglect the things that make them happy.
Mm-hmm.
So example like reading, example
Mm-hmm.
that we use, as much as they know it makes them happy, finishing a book
Yeah.
makes them accomplished, but they
Yeah.
still neglect it in some sense because they feel guilty about doing it when they are not doing well, say in work or in other aspects of their life.
Yes,
Yeah.
yes, yeah. No, there is that sense of guilt, and
Mm,
that's not just a work from home issue. That's just a work
mm,
issue and how we feel about it. I'm sure it's exacerbated because,
mm-hmm,
the time that you could be like in bed reading a book, you think, oh, maybe I just better read this report
mm,
instead. Yeah. Yeah, there's definitely some truth in that. But I mean, what I think people don't realize is that having that sense of accomplishment and
mm,
understanding that you are still an incredibly competent person will do wonders in other areas of your life. Like I said, we're separating it into like different approaches in different areas, but this separation is really only artificial. Everything is linked.
mm,
Everything is linked to everything. Your physical affects your mental, affects your cognitive, affects your ability to focus. Everything is linked.
yeah.
Yeah. So really just find, okay, what's your thing? Like
What's my thing?
what's the thing that makes you happy outside of work?
uh, I do enjoy working out. Yeah.
And have you been
Or
have you been
yeah.
doing, yeah, there you
Yeah.
go. See? So
I think I really much enjoy working at home because yeah, it gives me more time to do that.
mm,
Yeah.
yeah.
And also spending time with my family is a big thing. So
Yeah.
being able to be close to them even throughout the workday is also
Yeah.
to me like a huge motivation. Yeah.
I get what you mean. It actually makes me happy too.
Mm,
This is one of the areas that actually does make me happy. But I'm lucky because there are not many people in my family. I have one
mm,
daughter, she's 18.
mm,
So, she doesn't need my help with schoolwork, that kind of. In fact, I'm the one who needs help from her. Like, can you create an Instagram account for me? This is my first foray into Instagram, by the way.
yeah.
Yeah. So, it's a delight for me that I can, just knock on her door, go into her room and like hang
Mhm.
out with her during the day.
Yeah.
So, yeah. For other people, unfortunately, it doesn't quite work that way, but
Mhm.
um, I think, all right, there's something that I was reading or listening about where because you don't feel so much empathy, things like cares, and you're competing at home, right, for resources and things like that, for attention and so on and so forth. So sometimes there's like no more empathy left. Sorry, child, I've got nothing. Mother has nothing left for you, and you don't even bother sort of talking about that, and you don't even notice that other people are not feeling so good as well. So one of the things I was reading about was that in the home and in a public place, maybe like the fridge, get the fridge magnets. Everyone has one magnet, and then you kind of tell everyone that day, I'm like close to a 10 today. No, like I'm down to a 5, and by the time the evening comes, I might be up to a 7 again. So everyone's like, without even having to say anything or make like a big deal of it, but you can see, oh my gosh, son number 2 is struggling. And I think that really helps the family sort of pull together and say, right, okay, if son number 2 is struggling and I'm like at a 6, I still have bandwidth to go and give son number 2 a cuddle, or make him a Milo, or say, yeah, you're doing good, okay, things like that. I think that was a really, really nice kind of thing to do.
Yeah, I think for especially in Asian families where we don't explicitly say, I don't have the capacity, or I am unable to empathize at the moment.
Yeah.
But to be able to do it in that manner, or any other manners that you feel that works for the family, really helps communicate such feelings to
and
one
such
another.
an easy thing to do.
Yeah.
And I think, again, sometimes it's like the small things, like the easy things, that really make such a difference. So I hope I'm going to, actually, no need in my family because everyone's fine. But in those families, especially if you've got like a lot of kids and you just don't have the time, attention, or bandwidth, emotional bandwidth to attend to each of them, I think it's like a nice shorthand.
Yeah. It's great. Yeah. So,
the last thing, I want to talk about, again, about this sort of idea of the cognitive being such an important part, and you having to buy in to all these things, right? It's kind of like it really is sort of like the power of thoughts. So I've kind of saved the cognitive interventions for the last, because first of all, it's the basis of the behavioral changes in all the other categories. So basically, if you don't think that any of these behavioral changes is going to make a difference, they probably won't for you, right?
Okay.
Which is a shame. But the thing is, okay, we often believe that a stressful situation is the thing that triggers our feelings, right? And this is the power of thought that I'm talking about here. But the thing is, about 90% of the time, in fact, I could even say 100% of the time, it's not the situation that triggers the feeling. It is your interpretation of the situation that triggers a particular feeling. So I was listening to this lady called Dr. Luann Helm, and she was giving this excellent example, I thought. So let's say you walk into a shop, right? You buy something, and the cashier, she just like slaps the change on the counter, and she like pushes it towards you. So if you thought, who the hell does she think she is? I thought, how dare you treat me like that? I mean, what would your feeling be if you kind of thought that?
I mean, I would feel that it's rather disrespectful. Yeah.
Disrespectful,
If she did
right?
that. Yeah.
And your feeling would be anger, or something like that. But what if you go into a shop and the cashier kind of, you hand her the money, and the cashier like slaps the change on the counter and pushes it towards you, and you think, oh, she's had a really bad day. Poor thing. Gosh, I'm so glad I don't have that job. She looks like she's really stressed out. The feeling has changed completely. So it's our interpretation, and that's how powerful the cognitive is. That's how powerful thoughts are. And if we choose to look at a situation and say, this cannot be done, it probably cannot be done, because you're kind of like not really buying into. Do you have a pet? Is that a cat? Oh no, it's a
That's
crying
mine.
baby outside. I thought it was a cat.
That's my nephew.
I was gonna say, my gosh, pets are another, so a great source of stress
Yeah.
relief. But yeah,
Do
but
you have
yeah.
any pet? Do you have a pet at
Not
home?
anymore, not anymore. We used to have two cats.
Mm.
But anyway, when my mom moved in with us, she's like so afraid of cats, so we had to
Mm.
rehome them. So they have a
Oh.
good home, but we miss them. We miss them very, very much. Yeah.
Mm.
So okay, so a couple of things that you can try and do, knowing that it is your thoughts and your interpretation of a situation, and really it's practice cognitive flexibility.
Mm.
So cognitive flexibility is just the ability to adapt, and that means looking at things from different perspectives. This is not an easy thing to do, and I'm not saying go ahead, just go ahead, guys, practice cognitive flexibility. It's not. It is a skill, and the way you can start is by looking at interpreting a situation and then thinking to yourself, what are 5 other ways that I could interpret this?
Mm-hmm.
So you walk by somebody, a colleague, you say hi, they grunt. Some people will think, oh my God, he hates me. Other people will think, wow, he's having a really bad day. Another could be, he's got something in his teeth. He doesn't want to, smile at me. You see what I mean? What are five
Yeah.
other possible reasons for your colleague not smiling and waving in that way?
Mm.
And and then kind of look, really, what's the likelihood that the first one that popped into my head, that he hates me one, what's the
Mm.
likelihood that it's true? So, practicing that kind of sort of mental or cognitive flexibility will really help. For example, for those who are finding it really difficult to be at home in a full house and things like that, think to yourself, I never have to answer the door again because somebody's going to answer it. Or, I don't have to worry about so and so having a cold. I don't have to worry about my mom, wandering off or something like that. You don't have to worry about these things. They're there. Everyone's at home. It's all good.
Mm.
Right?
Yeah.
So, just find another way to look at things because there are so many perspectives.
Mm. Yeah.
And ours just isn't the only one. Yeah.
Mm.
And I
Thanks
think
for
I keep saying the last thing, but I keep
There are
lying.
many.
Why am I lying like this? Yeah. I think the last thing is okay. I know you might want to wrap up soon, but it's just kind of purposeful action. Just take some purposeful action. So, for example, if the job you lead, if it's not helping you to lead the kind of life that you want, or the working from home situation, it's not helping you to lead the kind of life that you want, then find something, to reignite, to re-spark that sense of competence and interest, and accomplishment. Yeah.
Mm.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And maybe another set of purposeful action you can take is not expecting to complete everything at once. So let's say at the end of the day, just decide what purposeful action do I need to take for me to know this is the end of the day, right?
Mm-hmm.
So you've completed some tasks, some are still pending, and rather than having them loom over you, slice them up into little things. For example, when I was doing my master's, the thought of writing, a 5,000 word paper was just, some days it was too much for me because I was working full time as well. So I would pre-task, I would do an outline, or I would just go and look at all the readings. I would go and find all the readings. I'd just go from one, place to another, and I'd compile that list of readings, and I'd feel, right, I have done enough. It's enough, and then you don't feel quite so overwhelmed.
Yeah, I think personally for myself, to-do list helps a lot. So I have a
Yeah.
to-do list. I check off my list, and
Yes.
yeah, if I get things that are urgently done and then things that are required to be done. So I kind of rank them in terms of priority and urgentness. Yeah,
Yeah.
I
And
find that
then
helps.
if Yes, it
Mm,
really does. And also, again, just writing things down or even putting them, on your computer, on your phone, or whatever it is, it takes it out of your head and puts it down somewhere where you
mm,
can actually, your brain can relax. It's not like swirling round and round in your head. So the
mm.
to-do lists are, I think, incredibly valuable as well.
Yeah. So yeah, thank you for speaking to us today. We are a bit over time,
I'm
and we did
sorry.
no worries at all. I'm sure everyone enjoys listening to how ways to cope with stress, how to recognize burnout, and it's really been an eye-opening chat with you. Prior to this, we did ask for some question submissions. Due to
Okay.
the time constraint, I will ask two questions from the list that we have.
Okay.
So, yeah, the first one is, um, how can I support my friend who is stressed at work or going through depression? Yeah.
Oh, okay. Well, first of all, that's really, I think it's really kind of you to want to do this because we're all experiencing such difficulties now. So for you to be able to step out of yourself and actually look at another person's suffering is, I think, pretty outstanding. Um, when we think of help, a lot of the time we think of advice. I will tell you what to do, or this is what I did, or this is what so and so did, and so on. And I I realized from speaking to my clients that this is not always the most helpful thing to do. The most helpful thing to do, first of all, is listen. Honestly, just listen. You don't even need to say anything except to prompt a little
Mm,
bit more, from the person. Um, if sharing your experience will help, put it in the form of sharing an experience, not this is what you should do. So I
mm,
think listen out, first of all, try and understand, ask a lot of questions. And if you find that, even after you've talked to her or him a few times and they're still seeming really detached, disconnected, disillusioned, and all sort of the classic signs of depression,
mm,
then know when is the right time to prompt them to seek help, I think is a very, very important thing.
mm,
Because all the well-intentioned advice in the world can sometimes backfire, can make them, more or less prone to talk to somebody who can actually help them. If
mm,
you do want to be helpful in that way, and if they seem reluctant to speak to somebody, say, I'll make the appointment with you. Let's get on an app together,
mm.
and I'll make the appointment with you. I'll help you write a list of questions that you want to ask your therapist, things like that. I think those can be really, really helpful.
Mhm.
So they
Yeah,
feel
actually,
supported, yeah.
the next question that I wanted to pick up from the list is, at what point should I visit a therapist or talk to a counselor? So I think a lot of people, I'm from this question, is they believe that they can work on their selves, or over time their emotions will
Yes.
tide over, they are able to cope with it. But at what point is the kind of the breaking point, or even before the breaking point, should they speak to someone professional? Yeah.
Well, I mean, all the sort of signs and symptoms that we've discussed
Mm,
this evening, um, the physical ones are probably the ones that will occur to you most of the time, because
mm,
I think we're so used to being stressed that maybe we don't even recognize it in terms of our thoughts and so on. But yeah, when you find that that you are not functioning. Things are impaired. Sleep is impaired. Nutrition is impaired. Focus is impaired. The way you feel about yourself, your self-esteem, and it just seems too big. I think, that's when you really seriously need to think about talking to somebody else. I'm really pleased to say, because I have been a lecturer for a really long time, so I see waves of students over the years and so on. My students who I used to teach many many years ago are less likely to see a counselor or a therapist or seek help from any kind of professional. Whereas the ones that I teach today, the idea of mental health, I think, really resonates with them. And some of the stigma is slowly being removed because they talk about it amongst themselves. And they find the commonalities there. So I think this is such a good sign, to the point where one day a 12-year-old student of mine came to me and she said, "Miss Cordelia, I don't know if you care, but my pronouns are they and them." And I was like, okay.
Wow.
I have hope for the generations that are coming up, that they're becoming more sensitive and that they're becoming more inclusive and maybe a little bit less judgmental than my generation.
Yeah, I think to wrap up also, you've mentioned that people are now more aware of mental health, and a big part of why we're doing this as well is to commemorate Mental Health Awareness Day, and to see that people are talking more about mental health, taking care of their mental health. I think it's very
Yes,
important, and with services like Safe Space, where there's accessibility and also affordability for people to seek help, or to even just have a safe space to talk about things. I think that's really
absolutely.
wonderful. Yeah.
I think
So
so too. Woohoo, safe space.
thank you so much for your time, for joining us tonight.
My
I had
pleasure.
a very eye-opening discussion with you. Yeah.
Thanks so much, Kristen.
Thank you. Thank you everyone for joining us today as well. We hope that you learn something, and you're able to take back and also apply it to your life. And if ever you want to speak to anyone, or even Cordelia, you can check her out on Safe Space. Yeah.
Okay.
Thank you. Thank you for your time.
Thanks.
Have a good night.
You
Bye
too.
bye.
Bye.